You again? I met you at the pub the other night, didn't I? I told you a face like yours stands out from the masses. Did you come to watch the meteor shower? Oh, I see. I can leave if you prefer being alone up here. Are you sure? You're quite daring, stranger. How very unusual. But, if you don't mind, I'll gladly keep you company. Normally this place is very quiet. A few teenage couples now and again, but they don't tend to stay long. It's a shame, really. Such a stunning view of the night sky is rare these days. Light pollution swallowed most of that beauty a while ago. Still, the stars are mesmerizing from up here, are they not? Back in the day, people believed they were the souls of the deceased, watching over their relatives at night, and that the moon was the one guarding them all. A shooting star would be a soul passing from life to death, or the other way around. That belief has held up for a long time, and can still be found in some modern religions. Fascinating, isn't it? You know, that reminds me of a story. Would you be willing to hear it? It will still be a little while before the meteor shower reaches its height, so we may as well pass the time a bit. It's an old legend, stemming from an ancient belief. A story of two gods in a curious young world. You'd like to hear it? Well, all right then. It goes like this. Once upon a time, very, very long ago, before things had names, and when people were nothing but a vague whisper of the future, there were two siblings, one heart and one soul. Twins, you would call them, had they been born to a mother of flesh. But the universe had birthed these two, raised them alongside what would eventually become the first humans. And so they watched the earth, one during the day, the other at night. They were the sun and the moon, the brightest lights that fell upon the only populated planet at the time, the only planet that mattered to them. It was said the sky was their home. A broad universe could have been explored, but they chose to stay. They deemed that the people and the world needed their light. Long ago they had frolicked through the galaxies, chasing one another. But they had since grown and matured, starting to take their tasks more seriously. And once the first forefather of humankind stood upright, the rhythm had steadied. Days and nights had become reliable, and slowly the siblings grew apart, only getting to see one another at rare occasions, such as solar eclipses. And whenever the moon would grow lonely and visit the sky during the day, well, I'm sure you've seen it before. But the two were always close at heart. They loved one another and cared deeply about their bond and their people. One heart and one soul, intertwined, pulsing in unison. Humanity grew to worship these gods, the safety they offered, the blessings they brought. They were grateful, lived and died in harmony, to be reborn once their time had come to live again. The goddess of the moon shepherded the souls of the dead within the night sky. They were the stars, shining brightly until she sent them back down to earth. In their time, the sky was littered with beautiful specks of light, a sight no modern human could even begin to imagine. It's a bit funny if you think about it. Nowadays, many people associate darkness with evil. Most gods of winter and snow are considered cruel, and the only offerings they receive are a bargain for peace. Back then, the goddess of the moon was respected and loved. the people understood that every night was necessary to rest, that during winter, plants could regain their energy to feed humans once more. She was the deity of replenishing, reviving and resting, of the moon, the cold and the night. And the people prayed to her, not to be kind to them or to hold herself back to keep them alive. No, they prayed to rest well, prayed for her to protect all the plants, cover them under her blanket of snow, so that they could grow back even stronger. Prayed for the animals to be slow and the food to be plenty. She was a goddess of death, as well as revival. They prayed for her to guide the deceased to safety, so that they may rest and come back wiser, better, and stronger than before. Every death, every grave, every nightfall was a celebration in her name. Offerings were burned, gifts were exchanged, a last honor bestowed upon the dead. Her brother, on the other hand, was prayed to at every birth, every sunrise, before every hunt and every meal. He was the god of light, growth, and fire. He was warm summers that brought ripe fruit, the bright days of hunting and dancing. He was the middle, life and physical growth, the day, the warmth, the energy. The goddess of the moon was everything around that. The spiritual and unseen side of things, yet no less worshipped. She was the life beyond, all that came before and after. They were complementary, and everyone knew that. One guarded during the day, the other at night. One guided them in life, the other in death. Wisdom, growth, development, and return. A steady cycle. And so it went for a few hundred years. The first gods. The only ones for a little while, though eventually the goddess of the moon began to grow lonelier, guarding during night time when most were asleep, watching them, all alone. I do believe they'd been growing apart then already, considering they would only meet so rarely. Yet still, they were siblings. Despite everything, they were a team, connected by the blood of the universe within their holy veins, the only beings that could understand one another's troubles. But it went as it had to. As most other religions have, they too came to an end eventually. A new group of people had moved on to their native lands and brought different, newer gods with them, much more radical. They captured the siblings' followers and gave them all a single choice: convert or die. For they believed in gods of war, blood, and brutality. So the siblings were forced to watch as their loyal people were slaughtered, one by one. Watch as the last bit of faith fell from their own over the years. They were unable to interfere, to save their people. They tried to fight it, but they could only do so much. Both of them were filled with such horror. They had no idea what would happen next. The sister of the moon refused to leave their last followers behind, but I think the brother of the sun was scared, worried they would disappear. So he left, while the moon stayed behind, watching over the last few that had faith. The god of the sun decided to build himself a new life, a new identity. And as the last few sparks of hope died, the goddess of the moon fell to the earth, found herself in a human body, though that alone wouldn't have been an issue for her. She could have lived and died among the people she once loved, despite their lack of faith in her. But as time passed, the goddess did not age. She could not die. The goddess of the moon was damned to walk these crumbling paths until they fell apart, and then some more. Watch societies rise and fall around her, experience every pain of the world without ever feeling relief. And for what? To learn? Repent? To suffer? She could not understand what she had done to their Mother Universe to deserve such torment. Walking throughout the world for thousands of years alone. About 70,000, to be precise. As time went on, she could not help but grow distant. After a couple millennia, she went to visit the churches of her brother's new followers. She tried praying to their god, but did not get an answer, though most of them never did, to be fair. She even read some of the scriptures, but, well, never mind. For the rest of eternity, the goddess of the moon was cursed to wander the earth, watching what had come of her once beloved humans. Of course, they did not recognize her. She was but another stranger to them, and despite so desperately wanting to, she never felt the presence of her brother again, either. So, she was left stranded in the mortal realm, unable to die, unable to help, unwilling to pick a new face. Stuck for eternity, left to wonder why her brother would just abandon her. All alone, for the first time in her existence. That's how it often is, isn't it? Believing that you know a person, that you can trust them, until something happens and they change. I don't believe the god of the sun meant any harm to his sister, but still, I fail to understand why he never came back. Maybe he found a way to die, though ultimately, death isn't really an option for a fallen god. Even if they walk the earth in a human form. That's because a form is all it is, a disguise. They're not human, and never will be. It's a lonely endeavor, but I suppose that's what one gets for being forgotten. On the other hand, maybe the brother still has power. Maybe he resides in whatever castle his followers dreamed up, feeling no need to visit the earth again. Perhaps he had abandoned humanity as he did with his sister. Or maybe he rules above the sky like the grand overlord he dreamed he'd be. They had once loved one another so deeply. Envy or wrath were foreign to them, and they ruled their people kindly and fairly, side by side, at least until the brother of the sun felt abandoned and became somebody else, chose a new name and then decided to regain the favor of humans after he had been disregarded. The goddess of the moon never dared to follow in those footsteps. She'd given up on that idea. She did not want to be something new. She only yearned to be herself, by her brother's side once more, helping people, answering prayers, receiving offerings and granting blessings. But that was impossible. Even if people began believing in them again, things had changed. What had been done could not be undone. I'm sorry. That story always gets me rambling a bit. But so far, nobody's ever bothered to listen. So, thank you, stranger. There definitely is something special about you. Never lose that spark. Hold on to it. Don't let anyone take it from you. Oh, look! The meteors! It's starting.